Autism. Autism is one of a group of disorders known as autism spectrum disorders, ASD.
Be the first to respond. Autism to awesome. Be the first to respond. Autism to awesome. Yolanda, I would like to ask you and all the ladies, but I'll start with you. When you started educating yourself and started getting into, I would say, some type of groove that you knew what you wanted to do, tell me one of the things that stands out to you that was a specific special intervention technique that you used that worked for your child.
What works for my child? My child is only 3, so I don't have the good experience like Jamie and Miss Tara here, but I do my when I take him to speech therapy, when I take him to all the therapists, I sit there and I learn from them. So I take what they do and I bring it home with me. I have to learn how to schedule my day as if something is going to happen, because it might and it might not, but I want to be prepared for it if it does. So if he does have a meltdown, he haven't had really too many meltdowns, but maybe it has been some days where it take me from work where he's, it lasts like 45 minutes, but it's not like often that I know, okay, this the day is happening, so I have to be prepared for it. So I kind of prepare myself every day as if it's going to happen. So I basically I try to comfort him. Sometimes I feel like it's nothing I can do. Yeah, I do share tears, but I have, as a mom, I have to get through it with him. If I have to sit there on the floor with him, whatever it is with his tantrums, I have to sit there with it. But I do take what the speech therapists, the OT therapy, all the therapists that he goes to, I do sit there and I try to learn their techniques and bring it home with me.
So basically what they're doing is you watch them and end up being like a trainer type thing. And you take the information home with you, because I know a lot of time when people do get services, especially starting out and depending on which state you're in, those services can be very limited. Sometimes where the therapist, if they are coming into the home, it may only be for, 3 hours a week. Sometimes I know those services can be very limited. Yes. So Jamie, share with us one of the special techniques that you have learned that work with your child as well to help you get through the day and help him get through the day.
Well, we have a few things. Like I said, he's 10. We've been through the ringer. He still has significant meltdowns. He's still self-injurious. So we use a lot of breathing techniques breathing techniques seem to work for him. The breathing, the counting, and then he's really, really big on football. So anything related to football, I can kind of just like grab his attention with something football, and we can do something, related to that. So it's like finding their specific interests, and then grabbing onto their specific interests, and then trying to go ahead to make interventions around that. And so that's pretty much what we do. We do a lot of breathing, and he has services that come in. He has a behavioral specialist that comes in. He has a mobile therapist that comes in. We all work together on drawing up interventions for him so that we can go ahead and he can try to be successful.
Quickly walk me through, how did you learn about the breathing technique? And can you describe to me how do you start it with your son to help him calm down and get back on track?
Yes. So I learned about the breathing techniques through us going through therapy. He's been in therapy for a few years now. And it's just something that I learned to do for myself as well, to calm myself down. And I noticed that it works for me. So I figured, let me try and see if we can get this to work for him. Usually it takes me a minute to get him focused. It's not something that happens right off the bat. It takes me a minute to get him focused, to look at me, to take the time to start breathing. So it's just like talking him through it, trying to talk him through what's going on, talk him through what the problem is, or find out what the issue is, and basically start from there. We start from there, and then I can get him to breathe in, and he starts breathing, and then we start counting, and we breathe, and we count, and we breathe, and we count, and it gets him back to reality.
Thank you for sharing that. And Tara, tell us one of the techniques that you use to help get your son back on track, maybe after he's having a meltdown, or one of the things that you find that just works really well for him.
I'm like Jamie. One of the things that really, really worked for him was something that he could keep with him. You know, the balloons that come with the long string, and when you blow it up, you tie it up, and it's the punching balloon. That was really good for him. Number one, because it's durable. And number two, it's hard to blow. And it takes a lot of focus, and it takes a lot of energy. So he had that in his pocket. It was something he could keep in his pocket. So he could pull that out and blow that balloon. And he has to focus on that balloon. And if you've, even as an adult, if you have tried to blow one of those balloons up, you really have to work at it. And so he would keep one, his teacher would keep one. And once he was able to remember his balloon, he could pull that out and blow that balloon and blow it up. And this little kid, this little skinny kid, because he only weighed $105 soaking wet, was blowing, you know, his cheeks are real big, and he's blowing on this balloon, and all of his energy is going trying to get that balloon to blow up. And the thing was to see how big he could get it. And if you can draw lines on that balloon, you can see how many lines he can get to expand. And so that was the thing for him to get him calm. How many lines did you get? Because the more lines he got to expand, the more excited he got about calming and focusing on that balloon. The other thing that helped was the consistency and the routine, because usually it was something that was a change that would trigger a meltdown for him every morning, every single morning, because he rarely had meltdowns outside of school. So every single day when I dropped him off, I would get to my job and send an email to his teacher. If his teacher was going to be gone, I would send it to the principal or the assistant principal, who would send it to the substitute teacher. I would send an email with a word of the day, and he would go to that individual and they would read the email with him. And it was kind of a have a good day. This is your word of the day. This is what you're going to focus on. And I still have those emails. My son is 22 years old, and I still have all of those emails, because I had a separate email account just for him, because I had so many emails related to his stuff that it was just overwhelming my email because I was in school. And so every single day I would send an email. So that was one of the things that he had, plus the balloon. So he had those things consistently. But if something happened that was beyond our control, automatically we knew something was going to happen. I was going to get a phone call because his schedule changed. So it was, the email wasn't going to work and the balloon wasn't going to work. So we just had to brace ourselves for that meltdown coming.
I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. One of the things that I found out, because I played sports in high school and all throughout college, and I was hopeful that my son would play sports as well. And when we got the diagnosis, you know, we knew it was going to be a challenge all the way. But one thing that I found out, and I started a program called Balling for Autism, is that sports has really helped him. I started coaching him probably when he was 6 years old, all the way through high school. And I told him that he was good, but if you compare him to other kids, he wasn't that good. But what I was looking for was the effort. That's what I was looking for, the effort that he put in And if I could get him to focus on dribbling, passing the ball to others, and staying engaged, I knew we could work on his social skills, his communication skills, his confidence. And if he can do that on the basketball court, on the soccer field, that can translate to the classroom, in which that's exactly what it did. So I'm a big proponent of sports, not so much for the competition, but for the learning. And also what I like about sports is that a lot of times people are reluctant to take our kids out in public because of meltdowns. And I understand, rightly so. I was there. Trust me, no one wants to be in the middle of a store and your kid have this temper tantrum, this meltdown that seemed like it would never end. And everyone is looking at you like, oh, you must be a bad parent. What are you doing to that child? So I get it. Trust me, I get it. So what I found though was that with sports, you know, they became less because I found something that he could really be engaged in. And also in sports is that you never know what's going to happen. He may take a shot in basketball, he may miss it. Well, you don't have time to be upset. You have to go and get the rebound. So it started helping him to adapt to change, to slowly start adapting to change, because for my son in particular, he loves a good routine. He loves routine. And I needed him to be able to change when it came time to change classes. If the day changed at school, I needed for him to be able to go with the flow, be able to go with the flow. And it took some time to get there, but we eventually got there. One question I want to ask you ladies is this, because for the first question, we talked about the special intervention, you know, training technique that you found for your child that helped you along the way. What special intervention training technique did you find that worked for you? Yolanda?
Therapy, a lot of therapy. So because it gets stressful, it gets, you know, it takes you into a deep depression that you don't know, because you're going about your day, and then when it's time to go to sleep, you find yourself with all these heavy burdens. So I end up going to therapy, and also I put myself in his shoes. I try to calm myself during the day, and that's when I use the breathing technique. So thank you, Jamie. I know when he gets older, if he has these things going on, I know I should put that on him and help him breathe too. So I appreciate that. So therapy is really helping me just to talk about it, just to have someone to talk to, just somebody to understand. So just to let it out and then just I could go on about my day now and let it out. I'm good. And I could go on. So therapy has been helping in the breathing.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. Jamie?
Yolanda, I'm going to piggyback off of you. Therapy helps me out tremendously. It's my let go of everything that I can, and so that I can bring myself back to reality. So therapy has helped me out tremendously. And I also built a network. What I did was I built a support network. When my son got his diagnosis and I looked out in the community, there was nobody out there that looked like me. So I built a support network, started out as a support group, and more families kept coming. So we built a network that we support each other. And so that's how we get through, supporting each other, providing that education, those resources with each other. I also provide trainings as well. I went to school for applied behavior analysis. So there's a number of things that I do to keep me where I'm at, to keep me balanced.
Okay, thank you. Tara, what about yourself?
So I'm going to borrow one from Jamie, and I hope I don't jump the gun. One of the things you talked about when in your book, I built a network, but I also didn't listen to the people that weren't experts, because and it's really strange. I woke up early this morning because I had some homework to do, and I saw this movie. It's kind of like a short documentary about it's called Black Boy Joy, and it's this father who is raising his son who was diagnosed with autism after his mother died. And they are literally waking up, going to her funeral. And it's the father, the son, and the father's dad. And it shows the father getting his son ready to go to the funeral. And he's going through the motions, and his father doesn't understand. He holds up a hanger with a vest on it and a hanger with a suit on it. And he asks his son, which one do you want to wear? And the son picks the one with the vest on it. And he's got on like a pair of Batman pajamas, black with like a Batman on it. And the son puts the vest on top of the Batman pajamas. So he's got these pajamas with the black, with the Batman on them and this yellow vest. I mean, it works, but it doesn't work. And his dad's like, what are people going to say? And he's like, I don't care. He wears what he wants to wear. I don't care if they judge him. And I'm like, that's it right there. You don't listen to people who aren't experts judging your son about what they don't understand. And that's the important part of this whole thing. And I'm like, that's the thing that sustains us when we walk through this world with our children. We put ourselves in their shoes, like Yolanda said, and we don't listen to the people who are not in our network because they don't get it, number one. And that's what will make it difficult for our children when we try to support them when they're doing whatever it is that they're doing. And so that's what it is that's made it so easy for me to be what my son's needed to make it 22 years. He's literally about to go into his final semester of college. And he came to me with a problem this morning about college. He's like, Mom, they're putting me in this program that doesn't even work for me. And I said, kiddo, you need to say something. And he looks at me and I said, yeah, this is all about you. If this isn't what you don't want to do, then you need to say something. Find the person that needs to hear your voice and use it. So let's figure out who that is. And he sat down. I literally gave him my desk and he went through the process and he said, I feel much better about that. And I said, because this is your college career and this is a step that you need to make for you. So you need to make sure that the people that are trying to get you to do something that doesn't feel comfortable hear you. And so he did it. And so that's why it's so easy, because we're not listening to people who aren't trying to hear them.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. One of the things early on for me that I had to discover for myself along this journey, because once you get that diagnosis, you hear the words autism for the first time, it's devastating. It's like taking a punch, in the stomach, and then another punch and another punch. So it was devastating, for us as a family. And we had no idea what autism was at the time, had no idea. And we started out with certain support groups, and it was we heard all the sad stories. We heard all the sad stories. And there was nothing good about it along the way. So one of the things that for me personally, and I write about this in the book under the special intervention training technique, mindset. I had to change my mindset because I didn't want to be in other people's world. I wanted to see the world a little bit different. Could it be different? I didn't know at the time, but I know that I wanted to try, because when the doctor told us there's nothing we can do for our son, prepare him for a group home, he was barely turning 3 years old. He was barely turning 3 years old. And I'm like, you're no longer our doctor. I said, I don't know where this road is going to take us, but I don't like what you're telling me right now. So for me personally, I had to change my mindset. I wanted to be more open. And once I started changing my mindset, I started keeping a journal. I started keeping a journal about, you ladies say, some of you say you went to therapy. That was my therapy session. I would journal, almost every day, how I felt, what my son went through, what I was going through, what could be done, and just get everything out. Because, sometimes, not everybody, but sometimes men tend to keep things to themselves. I'm not saying every man, But I'm saying sometimes we tend to keep things to ourselves. We tend to go to our caves and say things are okay. And I think sometimes women communicate with their friends, much better than we do. And I'm not saying everybody, I'm keeping this in general. So, but I kept it to myself and my journal. So once I started doing that, things became more open. And also I noticed that I started finding people that were like-minded, doctors as well. We started finding great doctors. We started finding other support groups, and they were about how can we go about helping our kids to become part of the mainstream. Now they call it inclusion. So that's what we were looking at, and that's what we started finding as well. Question to you, Yolanda. Well, your son is 3. Your son is 3. So is he mostly at home, or has he started preschool, or is he mostly at home?
He started pre-K.
So tell me how did that start? What was it like when you first started pre-K?
He actually his first day was exciting for him because he was already going through ABA therapy and all that. So he was getting used to being around people. But at first, it was like he didn't want to be around anybody, not even us. Like he would go in his own little corner, don't want to play. Look, I'll come get you when I need you, But once he started pre-K, he actually ran to his teacher like he knew her. And I think I was more sad than anything. Like, I was prepared for you to cry and us to sit there for a while and just go through it. But he was happy. Like he had, at that point, he had got to the point where he was engaging with other kids because he went through ABA therapy, the behavior therapy, to get those treatments as far as how to interact with others.
And what about you, Jamie? How was it when you first started school?
When he first started school, school was actually my lifesaver. That was how that's how we actually ended up getting his evaluation and getting his diagnosis, was because of his behaviors at school. And people took notice that the things that I was saying was true. But school was good for him. He really enjoyed it. He was a very picky eater. He was diagnosed with pica. He likes to eat things other than food. He was very, very picky. But other than that, he went in with the services that he had. He was able to interact with the kids after a while, because he used to like to really engage by himself. Which he still kind of does, but he knows how to interact a little bit, socially with people. So school was a lifesaver for us.
I think a lot of people are thinking that school's a lifesaver during this COVID pandemic. They can't wait for it to get back. So I have a question for you, Jamie, and me included. I can't wait for school to start either. So let me ask you this. You say at school, since you brought up the topic, at school is where he started to get his diagnosis. How did that play out? Who noticed what, and what steps did you take, and did the school take, once they started noticing certain things?
So the school had noticed, because he was very, very hyperactive, very impulsive. So they had taken notice to that he couldn't sit still. Nap time, he wouldn't nap. Like I said, he used to want to play by himself. Circle time, everything was on his own. And so they took notice to that. So like I said, I had already kind of picked up on some things. And so when they offered to do, I recommended that he get an evaluation, because you can recommend to the school that your child gets an evaluation. So I recommended that he got an evaluation for an IEP, because I felt like he needed it for the behavioral stuff. And so we end up getting the evaluation done, end up being referred to a psychologist, and end up getting the diagnosis. But that was, like I said, we got the incorrect diagnosis, which led us to additional services that led us to the correct diagnosis. So.
Tara, how was your journey when your child started school?
Mine was similar to Jamie's. His first grade teacher noticed that his behaviors were different. He wasn't necessarily disruptive. She actually said Asperger, and when I took him for the evaluation, it wasn't at the school, it was outside of the school. And we got the incorrect diagnosis from someone outside of the school. We didn't go with that. She disagreed, I disagreed. She said, no, he's not ADHD. And I didn't put him on medication. So I asked her what she recommended. And she said, let's go through the school district, because more often than not, some school districts don't have the professional within the system to do the testing. And that's usually why there's a delay. And more often than not, minority children, especially Black boys, are diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder first. And that's what he was diagnosed with. I gave the information to his pediatrician and asked him not to record it because I disagreed. He insisted that I go ahead and add it to his record. I said, don't. He said, if I didn't, it would delay him getting the services that he needed. I said, I don't care. I didn't want that in his record. So we went through the school district, and there, of course, was a delay, but he did get it in the second grade. But he was able to get services because the school had hired someone, and that individual brought in a social skills group. So he was able to attend social skills group 3 days a week in the school. So he was able to get services there. And then because we were in Texas, we were actually on Fort Hood. I worked on Fort Hood, and so he was attending school on Fort Hood. He was able to access services at Baylor University because they had a whole program. And so he was able to get permission to leave school early and attend groups because they were doing studies at Baylor. And so he was able to attend, and he got services there.